What if it's a letter we received from a constituent
That
and
is-
it was received as an email, but we make copies of it?
Do you still have the email?
Probably.
Okay, so the letter is then a copy, but it not knowing, that's why I say,
should
just
be
bring them
short.
in and we can
Let me
just.
let me
put 'em
make
in.
a suggestion.
I hope.
Go ahead, Rachel.
This will be short.
Well, you're gonna have a little discussion on the election thing.
What?
You're gonna have a little discussion on the election thing.
I went to a different computer, so it must be something on the software.
Might have to make a
Okay, I'll
change.
figure something out for you.
On what?
You make us.
There's just some wording. The mayor will talk about it.
You ready to go, ladies?
No. Just 2 more minutes. Why'd you even ask?
I'll call the work session for the Sierra Vista City Council for 10 October to order. We have, I know one person's out on family issues, and I'm not sure where Mr. Mount was. I'm sure he'll get here shortly if he's still in town. Okay, first item is item 2A, which is the agenda. And obviously, we'll call the meeting order. We'll have the prayer and the pledge, acceptance of the agenda, proclamation for Arizona Veterans Hall of Fame, which is coming up here at the end of the month. And we have a presentation certificate of excellence for Chaplain Ray Bingham.
What does he do?
And that's the question I had is this the city awarding a certificate of excellence, or is somebody else recognizing him from outside the community, or Vistability? Okay, so the Commission on Disabilities wants us to award.
It's called the Sierra Vistability Individual Award. It's
Okay.
the official title of it.
And will there be members of the commission to come up with me to award this?
Yes, there will.
Okay, good.
Is he the hospital chaplain?
Yeah, he's the hospital chaplain. Thank you, sir. We then go down to city manager's report, followed by the consent agenda. We got the regular meeting minutes for September 28th. And September 28th, I guess that was the special meeting, regular meeting. And then the equivalent, the liquor license for the VFW for Veterans Day. Any questions on those items? Yes, ma'am.
I just had a quick question. So the day, it's actually not specifically related to the license, but the Veterans Day ceremony is going to be the same as it has been in previous years. Is that correct?
It'll be on the 11th. The parade starts at 9 o'clock. They'll parade down to the park. We'll have the ceremony in the park. We'll end with a 21-gun salute. It doesn't look like we're going to have the overflight because the Air Force doesn't seem to be able to get down here till 12 o'clock, which will be over with by then, but we're still working on that. And then starting at 12, the Band of Brothers will come in and they're going to do some events, family-type oriented events like sack races and pie eating contests and, you know, those kind of family-type activities. Bring a band to play in the pavilion, etc.
Oh, that's so fun.
Okay, that's kind of what's on talking about. And we have a meeting on the 11th again to finalize everything.
Got it.
Pie eating?
Well, that's what they were saying.
I'll take part in that.
Well, we'll see.
Yes, sign me up.
Yeah, we'll see. I thought maybe you and Rachel would go in the three-legged race together.
We can do that too.
Yes,
You do
we
that,
can.
okay. All right. Under public hearing items, item number 3, a liquor control license for on behalf of Western Refining Retail. Ms. Adams, would you explain item 3, please?
Mayor Mueller, members of council, this is the convenience store on the corner of Fry and Lenzner, and it has changed hands, like seems to be happening with a lot of our convenience stores and gas stations in town. And the state law requires that this process goes through whenever a change of ownership is taking place on any liquor license. The notice of the public hearing for Thursday was posted on the facility. We have gotten no comments, positive or negative. The police department has done a background check on the applicant and has no objections. So if approved Thursday night, it will go to the state for final action.
Questions or discussion for Mrs. Adams? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to the next one, which is another liquor control for Paul Pubsley's Bar. and Grill. Ms. Adams.
Mayor Mueller, members of council, this is also not a convenience store, but it is a change of ownership of a liquor license here in town. Paul Pubsley's Bar and Grill, Paul's Pub. The ownership, the application is for a change of ownership. The notice of the public hearing was posted on the facility. No comments have come in. There were some questions related to rezoning conditional use for a church across the street, but this does not affect, that does not affect this bar staying where it is and being a bar with a new owner. So there are no objections from the police department after their background, and if approved Thursday night, will go up to the state for final action.
Any questions or discussion with Mrs. Adams? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to new business. Under new business, we've got change to elections. Ms. Adams.
Mayor Mueller, members of council, as you recall, on a work session in September, after an inquiry from Mr. Kiabu, the council discussed making some changes to our current election ordinance to allow for the movement of candidates from the primary to the general if certain conditions were met, i.e. if the number of candidates were equal or twice as many as the seats open, 6 for council, 2 for mayor. The item before you tonight, with an exception that I was informed I did make an error on the direct election section, that was not part of what was discussed by this council at the work session, but the proposed amendment allows for if 6 or more candidates run for council, or if 3 or more candidates run for mayor, that the election, the primary will be held. If it's 6 or less or 2 or less, then the races will automatically be forwarded to the general election and no primary will be held. Without the direct election issue, I'm sorry about that. There was a question about whether that actually could be legal, not holding a direct election, a primary, if you had a primary, because state law does require the vote count to a certain thing and does require the 50% plus 1, and that was not the direction of council, so that has technically been removed. It just hasn't been removed in your document yet.
Well, and I'm the one that raised it. Are you done, Jill?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to make some comments here. I was the one that read through this and raised the question because it's pretty clear to me that if we do the way it's actually written on the page, proposed on the page today, potentially we could violate state law, because they basically say if you have the 51% in the 50% plus 1 in the primary, you're elected to the office. So we don't want to violate state law. Obviously, the goal of this is try to prevent having the primary, and these need to be written in such a manner that we try to achieve that goal. And I really think that if you look at 38.01 Section B, that one needs to be rewritten to be more reflective to the 38.05 Section C. It's a little clearer. It's a little clearer in that paragraph, but again, we need to make sure that people understand that when we have a primary, which we're trying to avoid, but if we have a primary, that by state law, the person, if they get 50% of those who cast votes in that election and won, then they are in fact in office.
Yes, sir.
So we're not going to be able to completely avoid the primary, which is what the aim, I think, here was. So that's going to have to be rewritten and brought back to the council. Questions? Further discussion?
Was this going to go to vote on Thursday?
It's scheduled for Thursday, but if we need a little more time, and I think that's appropriate, I would recommend we just have it rewritten and have another chance to discuss it at a work session before we vote on it.
So pull it off the agenda for Thursday?
Yeah, that would be my recommendation, and if I can have consensus of council,
Okay.
we'll go ahead and do that, okay? But again, this is something that's important. We need to take the time and to get it done right and make sure that each one of us has a chance to look at it and think about it a little bit and come back for discussion
Will do.
in 2 weeks. Okay, and I know we want to get this done well in advance of the next election, so hopefully we'll have it done
Can
in another 2 weeks.
And I wasn't here at the work session when y'all discussed it. I was watching it while it was going on, and I don't remember, did we ever talk about the budget implication of if the primary isn't held, how much money that will save us?
Mayor Mueller, Councilmember Gray. The last election, it was $37,000 for the one election that we held.
And that was for the primary.
That was for the primary.
Okay.
We normally try to budget for 2, but this would allow us, at least in early June, when the filing period closes, we would know if we were going to have a primary or not, and whether we needed to even bother to budget for a primary, because we always have questions on a general, that's our historical preference. So if we had the 6 or less or the 2 or less, then we would know that we wouldn't have to schedule and budget for a primary earlier than the budget even comes to you guys for a vote.
Okay. And I'll wait on some other questions until we see the revised document and have another work session.
Anybody
you.
else on this item? All right, well, thanks, Jill. I know that's a lot of work, and we appreciate it. And Mr. Chiabo, we appreciate you bringing that forward.
We get it done.
Okay. Let me get my paper straight here.
Number 6.
Number 6. And this is an item for a development agreement. And Mr. Pregler, would you please enlighten us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. This subject property consists of 2 parcels on the southwest corner of Denman Avenue and North First Street, and you can see by the aerial here the location of the two parcels. The property is zoned manufactured home residence, which allows for single-family dwelling units, both site-built and manufactured homes. The applicant is proposing to construct 2 single-family homes, one on each parcel. Here we go. The development code requires a rear building setback of 15 feet. The applicant is requesting the rear yard setback be reduced by 5 feet, leaving a 10-foot setback for both residences. And I've highlighted in yellow the 10-foot rear yard setback area for both proposed residences on the property. All other setbacks on the properties will be met. The size of the homes are comparable to those in Crossing Point subdivision, approximately 1,500 square feet of living area. The applicant was proposing additional larger garages for maybe 2 or 3 car garage purposes, which is something that Crossing Point does not have on their lots. The property is located within the city's infill incentive district area. Through the designation, the city may provide relief from development standards to facilitate redevelopment activity. All incentives are identified in the policy. All incentives identified in the policy are implemented through a development agreement approved by City Council, hence the request today. Staff finds the request reasonable given the configuration of the property and its consistency with the infill incentive district policy, and that it provides much-needed site improvements, increased aesthetics, and will also encourage additional housing investment in the West End. This concludes staff's report.
Any questions for Jeff? Yes, ma'am.
Could you put the other map up? I was wanting to see what the cross streets are. First and
First and
Canyon.
Denman, and then North Canyon would be to the west.
And why did they need to reduce the 15 feet to 10 on the back side of the lot? Is that what you're saying?
Right. They're looking for additional buildable area. The applicant feels in order to market these, he's going to be selling both homes. He feels that to market these, he needs to have this certain amount of buildable area. As I stated in my presentation, this is the equivalent square footage house as it would be in Crossing Point.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Jeff, this is a site-built, not manufactured, right?
Correct. They'll both be site-built, correct.
Anybody else? Jeff, I do have a couple questions for you, and I know the fire chief's not here, so hopefully you've had a chance to talk to him since I talked to you earlier. The property to the south of these 2 properties, in the city?
Yes, they are.
Okay. My concern, as I discussed with you in the past, was Normally, the reason the setback is at 15, they would figure houses would be end to end and it'd be 30 feet, and essentially 30 feet of space to fight fires, but there's normally about a 5-foot overhang, so if they could get by with 20 feet, if I remember correctly, they could be able to fight fires effectively. And so by giving that standard up, what's going to be the impact on the property to the south, which appears to have a shed almost on the property line, if not on the property line?
Thank you, Mayor Mueller. I did drive by the site just to verify that those structures are still in existence, and they still are in place today. I did leave a message for the fire marshal. I've not heard back. I did talk to the building administrator regarding setbacks, minimum setbacks between structures. What he had indicated to me was that as long as there's a 10-foot separation between structures, whether it be 5 foot on both sides of a property line or 0 and 10, that would be adequate. Adequate distance between structures. No additional fire mitigation would be required, such as fire sprinklers or one-hour firewalls, things of that sort. As long as there's 10-foot separation, they'd be okay.
Okay, I appreciate the building inspector said that, but I would feel more comfortable if our fire inspector told me the same thing. Okay, because I probably got the numbers mixed up. It's been a few years since we've had that discussion.
Yes, I will contact them again and have an answer for you by the council meeting.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Just out of curiosity, too, on that same line of question, is that a wood fence or a brick fence between those two properties? Do you recall?
Chain link.
It's chain link.
No. Yes, sir.
When does the builder anticipate scheduling construction, demolition, et cetera?
Well, there's already a permit to demolish some of those buildings on the property now. If you drive by the property now, you'll see there's only one structure currently standing. He has a building permit in for the westernmost house right now, and so he's hoping within the next month or so to start construction on that westernmost residence.
How long will it take for you to get feedback from the fire marshal or the chief to answer the mayor's question?
I'd have that answered by today or tomorrow. I'd have it ready for the council
So
meeting.
there's nothing to
Should be nothing to hold it up, I would think.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Pregler.
Thank you.
And just to verify, that's the last one we have. We have a
settlement agreement.
settlement agreement, and that's Mr. Williams.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'll be Mr. Williams
Okay.
here today. Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
We're not paying you any more money now.
We'll let that pass, okay?
He'd be happy if he had your salary, though, I'm sure.
What you have before you here is authorization to approve a settlement agreement with Mr. Larry Mullinax. Mr. Mullinax filed a claim against the city with regards to negligence in one of our public works operations. As is typically the case in many of these, the risk pool takes over the case for us, and then they make a recommendation as to whether to proceed to trial or settle. In this case, they are recommending to us a nuisance settlement of $5,500 in order to clear the books of this particular claim.
Questions for Mr. Patuchik?
Have we had an executive session about this?
You need to ask him on the record that question.
Have we had an executive session about this? I'm just not recalling, or.
Not on this one. It was just the amount is so minor that we're happy to do that, but.
I wasn't recalling it, so I wanted to make sure.
Anybody else? Good. Okay, and I'm sure if you got other questions, Mr. Patuchik will be available, or Mr. Williams will be available.
One of us can help you with that.
Okay. That should be it on the agenda. So we now go to item B, which is the report of trips, recent trips, future meetings. Anybody?
We did Good Morning Sierra Vista this morning,
Yep.
and that was pretty good. I know, I didn't say hi, but I know
It was well
Miss
attended.
Ash was there.
Yeah.
I saw you talking to a bunch of people. I didn't interrupt. Miss Calhoun was there, but it was the CEO for the hospital spoke, and then the other usual suspects. So, good information. And I keep thinking something else happened, but also the holiday and everything else.
Okay. You going to talk about Citrus Cities, or you want me to talk about the convention?
Would you like to go ahead? You can start, and if
Okay.
there's any fillers, I'll be glad
Good.
to
You
fill
can
in.
keep me.
That's what I
You can
was
keep
trying
me.
to remember.
You can keep me straight. The Citrus Cities Commission, on behalf of the city, hosted the statewide Citrus Cities convention. They had a number of folks there. There was a good reception Friday night, as well as meetings all day on Saturday. We had a couple of folks from Cananea, our sister city, that attended as well, so it was an international flair. They talked about a number of issues dealing with the border and how what they're going to do on a statewide level as the membership of the international sister cities. Overall, I think it was a very informative and good convention. The first time we had a chance to host it, and I want to congratulate the members of the commission, and please pass my congratulations on to them for that great effort they made.
That was a good opening to that. It was really quite, well, let me just comment on, folks really loved coming to Sierra Vista. I heard more than once, and I'm sure everybody here has heard this, gee, I haven't been to Sierra Vista in so long. It's so beautiful here now. Oh, I just love it here. And someone else who commented about the many years she the state and had never been to Sierra Vista. And I could not have been prouder of the way the entire event was held. And I have to say, our public, our PAO office and Library and Leisure Services just really helped so much to make this a successful event. And I just get so happy to hear people say such nice things about our community. I wanted to add, too, that we took a group out to Brown Ranch, and that was that was really a lot of fun, but I have to comment that Hank Husking has learned how to rope a stationary cow, and it was so much fun to be out there, and people really enjoyed that and didn't mind that I called them city folk at some point during the event.
Well, you're such a country girl.
Yeah, right. That was the joke. And also, Fort Huachuca was very accommodating to a tour of the folks who went to MI Museum and also to the Fort Museum, and a little tour around the post. And these were things that really added to what the event was. And in addition to the things we talked about as sister cities, it really made the trip wonderful. The conference wonderful. And let me add, too, that our students, 8 of our students and 8 students from Cananea, left the Sunday after the event for Germany, for their exchange to Germany. And we'll be looking for families to host. That I'll say to our big audience here, when the kids from Germany come to visit Sierra Vista. So all in all, it was my first big event like that with Sister Cities, and it was very satisfying to be a part of that.
All right. Anything else?
Probably.
Anybody else? Okay. We'll move on to board and commission liaison updates. Anybody? That was kind of the Sister Cities update. Anybody else? All right. Future discussion items. Chuck, have we got anything on the schedule? You know? Victoria, excuse me.
It's got the keeper of the list.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we were scheduling for the next one an informational session on the OEA grant. Let council know what it is, what staff are doing with it. Did you want November's update as well?
Sure.
So then the first meeting in November, or the only meeting in November, will be the economic development update.
Okay.
And that's what's on the
We're
schedule
going to do
so
that
far.
separately, or we're going to do that as part of the?
Well, Jill may have one.
We're going to do that as part of the work session.
Oh, yes, that'll be scheduled with the first work session in
Okay.
November. I also have a request from the Board of Supervisors and BLM to have a meeting regarding water in early November that I will get info to you.
You can sit down and talk about that.
I'm hoping to set, if we can, prior to that work session.
Yeah, okay.
BLM.
Yep.
They want to have.
Did you have I need to see whatever the written request was,
Okay.
if they have a written request.
I have it from Arlene. That's all I've got.
Arlene, okay,
I'll forward it to you.
all right. Anything else?
That's what's on the schedule so far,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Any other council requests or future discussion items?
Let's clear the plate a little bit, Mayor.
Okay. Nothing else? That's all that's scheduled for today. I want to thank everybody for being here. Nice, short, and sweet. We still got some work to do, so enjoy. Meeting's adjourned.